Welcome back to Jersey Matters. A documentary is in the works about the music scene in Asbury Park. And our next guest is involved in that because it is kind of a unique partnership. Mikle is a reporter at the Asbury Park Press. She also writes for APP.com. Welcome. Tell me about the documentary.
Well, this is going to be really unique, Larry, because it's the first time that the press is going to open up its archives to someone who's producing a documentary about the music scene in Asbury Park in the late 60s, early 1970s.
And who's directing the documentary?
It's the guy's name is Tom Jones, and he's a documentary producer. He's done a documentary about Amelia Earhart.
Oh, wow.
And a bunch of other kind of award-winning documentaries, and he grew up in Monmouth County.
Right, and it's more than just the music scene. The area was going through turmoil at this time.
Correct, and I think that's what he wants to look at. Most people know that in 1970, in July, there were riots in Asbury Park, racial disturbances that really burned down a lot of the West Side businesses, which was, Asbury, of course, was a segregated city, and the West Side was where the African Americans and also Jewish and Italian immigrants lived pretty peacefully up to that point.
So he's centering on the music scene, but it really is a bigger story.
Yes, I think he wants to look at the music scene and how it connected to the larger Asbury Park, what was going on with the city, some of the tensions and turmoil that was going on with the city at the time, and how this one club, the Upstage, was kind of like an oasis of calm, is how he described it in this whole,
And it was integrated.
Yes, it was. It was integrated. It was very rare at that time when the city was integrated, and the East Side, of course, was mostly white. The West Side was black, but the Upstage drew musicians from, both black, white, and musicians too.
And the Upstage attracted both black and white musicians. Why?
Well, because it was open from 1 to 5 a.m. and musicians would finish their gigs wherever, and they all kind of congregated. There was an after-hours spot, and there wasn't anything else like it.
So they could hang out with other musicians,
exactly.
and they would get up and play?
Yes, they would have these long jam sessions. It was basically like, I kind of say akin to, choosing sides in softball or a baseball game. If you were really good, you could play all night. You would go to sign up, but if somebody really thought you were a great guitar player, they'd request you in their band, so you'd play all night long.
Talk about some of the names that played at the Upstage.
Well, obviously the most famous name is Bruce Springsteen, who really got his start in Asbury Park at the Upstage, but also a lot of the people that he went and performed music with even to this day. Vinnie Lopez, the first drummer in the E Street Band, Danny Federici, Gary Talent, David Sanchez, who was the first keyboard player in the E Street Band, and Southside Johnny Lyon all came out of the Upstage.
Now, after you talk about Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, you're doing a documentary, so it's not just about them. Are there other bands? Was there other musical influences at the time that are worth noting? Well,
I think so. There were kind of like these guitar gods. I mean, Bruce was one of the people who was kind of vying for the title as the hottest guitar player on the scene. But there's Sonny Ken, who still plays around here to this day. Billy Chinook, who he got signed to a couple different record deals coming out of the Upstage. Ricky DeSarno, who still plays around to this day. So there's a lot of people who made music their career that came out of that club.
Yeah, and tell me the story about the Upstage when the riots started.
Well, the Upstage was interesting because what happened when the riots started is what I've heard is that the musicians all kind of rushed to the club to make sure it was saved. I mean, the West Side was on fire, and it was only a couple blocks away from the Upstage, so they kind of ran down to help the owners out to make sure that it was saved. And supposedly someone tried to throw a Molotov cocktail through the front window, and it was thrown back out. That was what I heard.
So give me the particulars. When are you going to be able to see the documentary? When is he in production now?
Well, interestingly enough, Tom actually started in 2006 when the Upstage building was actually for sale back then, and they thought it was going to be turned into condominiums. A group of the musicians went back and did a final jam, which he filmed, believe it or not.
Wow.
And then he kind of just, he's a very busy guy. He let it go for a while. The building was sold. A gentleman bought it who was trying to revive it as a club, and it never really worked out. It's for sale again now. So what happened was, luckily though, he caught a lot of people who have since passed away, believe it or not, in 2006. So now he's returning. He's going to be in the city in June to try and do some interviews and get some people interested. And the plan is for it to premiere next April in the second annual Asbury Park Music and Film Festival.
Right, we had some of the people from the film festival here a couple of weeks ago. It was a pleasure to meet you, and thanks a lot. That's a fascinating story.
Thanks a lot, Larry.
It's pretty cool. Mikle, who is a reporter at the Asbury Park Press and APP.com, and that wraps up Jersey Matters for this week. I'm Larry Menti. Stick around for another thing.